Somewhere in 9th century China, a group of monks were trying to live forever, not metaphorically. Literally, they believed that if you mixed the right minerals in the right order, you could brew a potion that would make you immortal. So they spent years mixing everything they could find, heating it, testing it, and one day they combined 3 specific ingredients: saltpeter, charcoal, and sulfur, and instead of living forever, they nearly died. Because the mixture exploded, there are actual historical accounts of singed beards and burned down workshops, which tells you exactly how well the immortality thing went. They called the result Huo Ya, which means fire medicine, a name that still carries the embarrassing memory of what it was supposed to be. A failed drug, not a weapon, but that failed drug would eventually become the most consequential invention in the history of human violence. So how did we get from a monk with a singed beard to the weapon that ended the age of swords, collapsed castle walls, and reshaped every civilization on Earth? The answer is a journey, and it is stranger than you think. For a while after the accident, nobody thought about weapons at all. Gunpowder was used for fireworks, for festival entertainment, for making noise to scare away evil spirits. Imagine that. The most destructive substance in human history started its career as a party trick, but eventually, somebody in the military watched a firework go off and thought, what if I pointed that at a person? And that is essentially what the fire lance was. Take a piece of bamboo, strap it to the end of a spear, fill the bamboo with gunpowder, light it during a fight, and it would spray fire and burning debris directly at whoever was standing in front of you. Now think about what that would have been like. You have trained your entire life to fight with a sword. You understand swords. You can block a sword. You can dodge a sword. And then some guy points a stick at you and it shoots fire. You have no framework for understanding what just happened. The first recorded use was at the Siege of Dian in 1132. Defenders on top of a wall used fire lances against soldiers climbing up. And it worked, not because it was particularly accurate, not because it was efficient, but because nobody had ever seen anything like it. And in warfare, confusion kills almost as reliably as the weapon itself. Then someone had an idea. What if we put rocks in there too? Small stones, pieces of broken pottery, shoved into the bamboo alongside the gunpowder? Suddenly the fire lance was not just spraying flame, it was launching projectiles. And that single idea, rocks plus explosion, is the entire concept behind every gun that would ever exist. But there was a problem. A very obvious, very painful problem. Bamboo is not strong. When you pack more gunpowder into a bamboo tube to make it more powerful, the bamboo explodes in your hands, which is exactly the opposite of what you want a weapon to do. The number of early soldiers injured by their own fire lances is not recorded. But based on the general principle of what happens when you hold a small bomb, it was probably not a small number. The solution was obvious in hindsight. Stop using bamboo. Start using metal. Chinese engineers began casting bronze tubes strong enough to contain the explosion, and the hand cannon was born. A metal tube, packed with gunpowder and a lead or stone ball, lit from a small hole at the back, and pointed at whatever you wanted to stop existing. It was heavy, it was slow to reload. It was wildly inaccurate, and it was the most dangerous thing anyone had ever held in their hands. By the 1200s, metal hand cannons were standard equipment in Chinese armies, and they were about to go on a journey that nobody planned because the Mongols were coming. Here is something that history rarely gets credit for. The Mongols were the greatest accidental technology delivery service in human history. When Genghis Khan and his successors conquered China, they encountered gunpowder weapons firsthand. During sieges like the defense of Kaifeng in 1232, where Chinese defenders used everything they had, rockets, thunder bombs, hand cannons, and the Mongols, instead of being defeated by this new technology, did what the Mongols always did. They took it and then they carried it westward, through Central Asia, into the Islamic world, and eventually toward Europe. Think about what that means. A weapon invented by monks trying to live forever in China was carried across an entire continent by an army of nomadic horsemen who had no interest in where it came from, only in what it could do. That is not how we usually imagine technology spreading. We imagine scientists in laboratories, publishing papers, having conferences. In reality, one of history's most important technology transfers happened because a conquering army thought, this thing is useful, let's bring it. By the time gunpowder reached Europe in the late 1200s, it landed in a world that was completely unprepared for what it would do. Castles that had survived centuries of siege were suddenly vulnerable to cannon fire. Knights in heavy armor, the most expensive, most trained, most prestigious warriors in European society, could now be killed by a farmer with a metal tube and a match. Think about what that means socially. A knight spent his entire life training. His family spent a fortune on armor and horses, and a peasant with 6 weeks of training and a cheap weapon could end all of it from 30 meters away. That is not just a military revolution. That is a class revolution. The gun did not just change how wars were fought. It changed who could fight them. But the early guns still had a ridiculous problem. To fire one, you needed 2 hands, one to hold the gun steady, and one to hold a burning piece of rope and touch it to a little hole at the back at the exact right moment, while also trying to aim at someone who was actively trying to kill you. Does that sound practical? It was not. The matchlock mechanism solved this. A French gunsmith attached a burning cord to a mechanical arm on the gun itself, pulled the trigger. The arm swings down. The cord touches the powder. The gun fires. Both hands stay on the weapon. This sounds like a small improvement. It was not small. It was everything, because for the first time in history, a single person could aim and fire a gun with some actual hope of hitting what they were aiming at. The matchlock had one problem, though. It needed a flame burning at all times, which meant it did not work in rain. It glowed in the dark, and it required constant babysitting. Then came the flintlock. A piece of flint strikes a piece of steel, sparks fly into the powder, the gun fires, no open flame needed, works in any weather, does not glow in the dark, and can sit loaded and ready for hours. This is the gun that conquered the world. The flintlock was the weapon of the colonial age, of the American Revolution, of the Napoleonic Wars. For 200 years, every major conflict on Earth was fought with some version of this mechanism, all because a monk in China was trying to live forever, and a gunsmith in France was tired of burning his fingers. So here is the full journey. A failed immortality potion in 9th century China became a party firework, became a bamboo tube strapped to a spear, became a bronze hand cannon, was carried across a continent by Mongol horsemen, collapsed the castle walls of medieval Europe, ended the age of armored knights, put power in the hands of ordinary soldiers, and was refined, step by step, over 8 centuries. Into the weapon that shaped the modern world. No single person invented the gun. No genius had a eureka moment. It was centuries of people solving the specific problem that the last version had created. Bamboo breaks, so use metal. You need 2 hands to fire. So add a trigger. The flame goes out in rain, so use sparks instead. Every version fixed one thing and created the next problem, and that chain of problems and solutions, stretching across 800 years and 3 continents, is how humanity turned a singed beard into the most consequential weapon in history. The monks never got their immortality, but the thing they accidentally created changed what it meant to be mortal. If this changed how you think about the history in your hands, share it with someone who never knew where guns actually came from, and I will see you in the next one.